Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sam's Report. It's the 24th. This month is basically over, and a lot of good stuff happening this week, even though there weren't a lot of big announcements. Interesting things in the world of Microsoft. But before I kick that off, if you're not familiar with Thurrott.com, that's one of the sites where actually this podcast gets posted. But that website, through that website, I should say, we're running a challenge. It's called the Xamarin Challenge. Totally recommend you check it out. You can go to Thurrott.com or just go to Xamarin.Thurrott.com, I believe. If not, I'll put the link in the show description after I do this. But anyways, if you complete the challenge, we're giving away 2 Surface Studios. So I got a lot of questions because it's like, hey, Brad just got a Surface Studio. Is it that Surface Studio? No, it is not that one. That's a review unit for Microsoft. That is not one of them. The one you will get will be fresh and pretty and free of my DNA and fingerprints. So you can go check that out. It's not all that hard to do. I've actually been rocking through it, getting more familiar with Xamarin and Visual Studio. And you got a chance to win one of 2 Surface Studios. So that's a pretty legit prize, especially if you're familiar with Xamarin. You guys can definitely blow through that stuff. But on to the more fun stuff this week. So the Wall Street Journal came out with a post, and they said the Windows 10 version for China's government is now complete, and they used, in quotations, the back doors were now removed. So I did a bit of poking around on this, and what I've uncovered in the biggest change between the version of Windows 10 that the Chinese government's going to use and the version that we use today is that actually when you authenticate the Windows 10 China government version, it's not going to Redmond. It's actually going to one of their partners in China. So that's a pretty big change. But that's one of the caveats that Microsoft made is that, okay, they still have to buy a licensing and they still have to authenticate it. But rather than that data going to Redmond, it's now going to a local company in China. And if you're familiar with how China works, if you are a foreign company wanting to do business in China, you can't just go there and just build open up shop. That's not really how it works. You actually have to create a partnership with a local company. And that's really what Microsoft has done here. They created a partnership with a local company. That company is now going to be responsible for the authentication of that stuff. And that's the biggest change. I don't know if Microsoft has detailed everything else out, but that's kind of what I understand to be the biggest difference between the 2 iterations. I actually fully expect at some point somebody here will get their hands on this build of Windows 10, and actually they'll tell us a little bit more, but that's what we know for now. Speaking of Windows 10, Windows 10 is RTM'd, although Microsoft doesn't use that language. If you dig around far enough into the source code and the things within inside of Windows, yeah, they actually still use that. It is going to be 15063. It's the same. Is it 1603? It's the latest build that has gone out. Is now available for the slow ring. Microsoft is just pushing this stuff everywhere. They're getting ready to kick this out the door. We don't know the exact date yet. Microsoft has not officially announced it. But I suspect that in the relative near future, Microsoft will do that. I mean, the dotted lines have been signed. This stuff is signed, sealed, and delivered. Now it is time to move on to Redstone 3. And so what is Redstone 3? What's the plan here? And so taking a step back, if you look at what Redstone 2 was, it really was just kind of a shadow of a whole bunch of randomness that they packaged under this creators update. And they created a 3D paint app and some other random stuff and improved pen input. But realistically, it's a pretty minor update. There's not a whole lot of stuff in it. I know somebody's going to write me an email with a list of like 65 different things, but they're all small things, like being able to use a pen in the Maps app, which I would argue is still not really a creators update because that can be serviced through the store. And so that's really just an app update that they conveniently timed with the creators update. But anyways, there's some good Edge stuff coming, but it's not really a big update. Redstone 3, from what I'm hearing, is going to be a much larger update. There's going to be some significant UI potential. I shouldn't have used the word significant, but there's going to be some UI updates. I believe we'll eventually see that white theme. There's going to be some Action Center goodness. At least this is all the stuff that's in the planning. Mobile is going to be getting some good stuff, I believe. I think there was some mobile stuff tagged for Redstone 2 that never materialized, and I don't know if they pushed it to 3. But we're going to find out real quick here. Well, I shouldn't say real quick. And then there's some back end underlying changes that I think are going to allow them to enable more features more quickly. So a lot of good stuff going to be coming in Redstone 3. The timeline for that is we're looking October, November. Granted, this could all shift. Uh, this is really like fluid at this point. So if it comes October, November, this stuff's not out, don't be chastising me. But look for like that type of a time frame, which also means that the insider builds that we start getting should start coming from a different branch. Currently they're in the Redstone 2 branch. The next one, I would not be surprised if it's actually from the Redstone 3 branch. That would make the most sense. And what we'll typically see here is some new features up front. Then there'll be a little bit of lag, and the new features up front are typically those that got delayed from Redstone 2. There'll be a nice little lag time where there's not a whole lot, just bug fixes and stuff. And then there'll be a huge push of updates. Kind of if you remember like the December, well, let's just say like the January, February timeframe, there were a lot of features coming in. Expect that type of thing to obviously ramp up. I would hedge maybe June, July for that kind of stuff. We'll see. Might be a little bit later than that. But that's the tentative kind of push right now. So Redstone 3, right around the corner. Should be a lot of good stuff. We're starting, and I don't know if I've mentioned this ever before, but here's the thing that I start getting worried about with these multiple updates per year with Redstone. So Microsoft is successfully moved to a rapid release cycle, and it's like, good job, give them a round of applause. I almost wonder if it's too rapid, because we get things like the creators update, which is like this, they made this huge deal about it, but it's not really all that much stuff. And again, I know there's a lot of things in it, but nothing substantial it would be the better way to phrase it. But anyways, here's what I begin to worry about. So it's like, okay, hey, like they're having another big update this fall. Like people are going to start looking for things to do that may not need to be done, but they're going to do them anyway to justify being busy, to make sure that they have something to include in the release. And I worry that, getting through the first couple of updates is fine, but then they're going to be like, okay, what are we going to do for the next update? And they're like, you know what, I don't have any good ideas. And then they'll just create something dumb, and they'll go do it for the sake of doing it, just to justify that they're busy, to justify their org's budget. And so I haven't seen any blatantly obvious things like that, but it wouldn't surprise me if we eventually see that stuff like seeping in into Windows 10. And that's just kind of them, because they're not just them. I should phrase that better. But that's because I think they're almost getting to the point where they're pushing things out too rapidly. I think they would be better off if, hey, every July they pushed out an update. Just very regimented, very stable, very reliable. Because remember, when this creators update comes out, it kicks off the 60-day end of life cycle for build 1511, I believe. And so, like, if you're an IT admin, it's like you've got, you're juggling all these update balls in the air. And we like, as a human, we like stable, reliable patterns. It's just like, that's why people sometimes don't like change. We like things to be consistent, and these updates are coming at very random times. We've had July, we've had in the late fall, and now we have in March, April. So there's no consistency to this stuff. It's just like, hey, it's done, bam. Too rapid might be too much, but we'll see. We'll see how this stuff continues to materialize. Kind of somewhat out of left field, but I think I got a pretty good theory about why this is happening. Apple announced a bunch of stuff this week, a lot of random stuff too. So they're replacing the 2-year-old iPad Air with a new budget iPad for $329, 32 gig version. The iPad Mini 4 got a quasi update, but it now starts at 128 gigs. And because they discontinued the 32 for $399. iPhone 7 and 7 Plus got a red iteration, so iPhone red. Although they were dumb and they made the front white instead of black. Black looks so much better. And then the iPhone SE, they upgraded the base level storage. They also came out with some new bands for the Apple Watch, and a whole bunch of just kind of random mishmash stuff. And so here's my theory on this. I think Apple's going to have an event sometime in the next 4 to 5 weeks, and they will announce the new iPad Pros, maybe new iMacs and updates to the Mac Pro. And so that's kind of a lot of stuff in the Apple world. And all of the things that were announced were always those kind of like background items that were announced at previous Apple events. So what I'm thinking they're doing here is that they bundled all that stuff up and said, hey, you know what? I bet we can ship this stuff early. will get a nice PR cycle about it. It won't go unnoticed, and then they'll have their event where they'll get all the the premium products will get all their love too. And so it's actually a pretty smart move on Apple's part, because now they're getting 2 PR cycles about new stuff, and there you go. So I think it's just them clearing house of the backlog and that. Speaking of the Mac, this leaked out earlier this week by Walking Cat. It's actually an app. It's called Mac to Surface. And what it is, it's an app you can download for your OS X. And it allows you to basically bundle up all your content that's on your Mac and move it to a Surface. It's called Mac to Surface Assistant. Wouldn't surprise me maybe if Microsoft announces at their upcoming Surface event that I believe they're going to have. I'm thinking it's next month. There were some rumors coming out that it would come out at the end of March. No. I never actually shot down some of those, I think, on Twitter, when people are saying, hey, it's coming to March. I'm like, I don't think it's coming to March. I'm more confident that it's in April. Now, if April goes by and doesn't happen, then I'll be like, eh. But that's what I had heard was April. Initially we heard spring, so technically now we're in spring. And then I was hearing that it was April was the target month for that stuff. So rumors speculate that maybe Microsoft is waiting for Apple to announce their event, so then they can strategically do it then. Around and not overlap or do whatever, but I don't know if that's a good idea. A couple reasons. One, typically you have to reserve a venue. I would imagine Microsoft probably rents it for a week, so it's not like something they can say, bam, we own this place, we can just go do it. That is unless they had the event at their Redmond campus, which Microsoft, please do not have it at your Redmond campus, because we have to go up there for build, and that's a really long flight. So anyways, Mac to Surface Assistant you can't find it anymore, but if you're looking to go from a Mac to a Surface, Microsoft has a neat little app that will help you do that. Other things that happened this week. Microsoft's infrastructure kind of pooped the bed again, and for over an hour on this stuff, it was offline. And so, the internet goes nuts because, again, it seemed like it's something to do with the MSAs, because it was kind of everything was going down. And so an insider at the company actually told me what the root cause was, at least initially. Now, granted, when these things happen, sometimes you have a failure at point A, and that failure replicates across, and that causes more failures in different areas and creates a snowball rolling down a hill effect of issues. But I believe the initial thing that kicked this off is that somebody pushed out a bad authentication certificate to the MSA infrastructure or whatever it's called, and that's what really screwed this up. And of course, as it replicated to different services, that knocked things offline, and they had to go purge that bad certificate. And it took them over an hour to get that fully flushed out of the system. So from my understanding, it was, again, 100% human error. So as we've learned from Azure, I think 2 times now, and Amazon, the weakest link of the cloud is a human. Yep. Because a human took down Azure, or AWS with a bad code push, and it took down Azure with a bad code push. So lesson is, never human in your cloud. Never let a human in your cloud, because apparently we just need to let the robots do it. So anyways, that is going on. Other things in the bad world of Microsoft before we jump into the questions here is Skype. Skype had a WTF moment late yesterday afternoon. So they do these Skype chat things, which are fine. I have no problem with them. And it's kind of like an interview through Skype or whatever. And they were promoting some guy's thing, and it says, hey, come chat with this individual at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. And the attached picture was, and I'm not making this up, was quite literally a male that was cut in half, and all you could see was his torso, and his guts were like spilled out. It was an extremely gory picture. Clearly not something you'd want on Twitter. It was the epitome of a PR fail. And I don't know why you'd even have that. Like, the person who tweeted this is like, did you not see the image that you attached? The only thing that went through my mind is that, they're on their computer and it's like, okay, I'm going to tweet this out, need to grab this picture and put it up, and they grab the wrong picture. Fine, that happens, but why do you have that picture on your machine in a very highly visible spot? I don't know. It was way to go, Skype. But on the other side of the Microsoft coin this week, it was actually really quiet. They didn't really announce a whole lot, mostly because they're heads down getting this creators update ready to ship, and people were kind of hoping maybe that we'd hear things going on. I will throw this out there, speaking with Mary Jo in a little bit, and I think she talked about this on Windows Weekly eventually. She doesn't think the Surface Book 2 is coming at this April spring event. Again, this is her saying, I haven't heard anything particular about this, but she thinks it may not be a Surface Book 2, it might be just a different device. And that's kind of where her information ends, I believe. And so it gets you kind of thinking about Microsoft doing stuff with ARM. They always like to create category defining devices. So it'd be interesting if they came out with some sort of Windows ARM based device. Remember, they had the Surface RT initially. I don't think they're going to go that route, but it might be something more clamshell from what the patents that have been uncovered suggest, and it might be based on ARM. Remember, Microsoft is moving into this ARM space in the fall. The other question comes out, is it too early to announce something for this product line now if it's not going to ship to the fall? We don't know when it's going to ship. We don't really know how far along it is. We have seen Microsoft demo Windows on ARM, so it could be a very real possibility that, hey, it's much closer than we think, and they, again, might take the risk of getting those chips early from Qualcomm, the Snapdragon 835, and actually running with it. A lot of speculation at this point. I think we kind of need to just simmer down. I know some people are going to run with some crazy headlines based off of that stuff, but just pay attention to the people who are reasonably calm about this, because we need to wait and see what Microsoft is doing. Because I can tell you this much, every single piece of hardware Microsoft has shipped since the Surface RT, they have been extremely scared about write-downs, because if you don't remember, Surface RT, they had a $900 million product write-down, and they do not want to have that again. They haven't had too many big issues, but they haven't shipped anything that's really ARM-based since, with the caveat of phones, technically, and the Surface RT2. But again, those are such limited production runs. So, still trying to poke around on that. If anybody knows who's listening, Snapchat's the exact same as my Twitter handle, and that's a great way to chat about this kind of stuff, or whatever comfortable. I will tell you this: one of the people who emails me insider sources, I have absolutely no idea who it is. It comes from a very random email address. Just information shows up in my inbox, and over time, it has proven to be extremely reliable. But I have absolutely no idea who it is. Microsoft come to me and say, hey, we got your source, it's X person. I couldn't tell you. I talked to quite a few people, but one of the more accurate people, I have absolutely no idea who it is. I like to think it's Satya, or somebody who's disgruntled and likes to tell me things, but I honestly have no idea. So there you go. We're going to jump into the questions, because there are quite a few this week. Whoa, where's my tab? Adam Corbally asks, he says, do you think Microsoft should be doing more to make affordable PCs and laptops attractive via the store and hardware? Most admittedly, excellent hardware is out of reach for the current customer. Games in the Windows Store only run on the best hardware. Why not get some Xbox 360 games in the store that people can run? Why isn't Age of Empires in there? I love Age of Empires. It would be something for Android tablets. iPads couldn't, but PCs could. And so this is like a really multiple part question. So one of the things that Microsoft does do for lower end hardware to make it not such a terrible experience is, if you're going to buy something, I fully recommend trying to get a signature PC, mostly because that comes without the crapware. And so for lower end hardware, which is where companies like Dell and HP and all those guys try to make up margins on that low end hardware, is by including things like antivirus, just bundled games or applications that you'll never need, want, or use. And so the question becomes, should Microsoft be doing more to make games playable on lower end hardware? So this is a double-edged sword here, and let me explain why. One, a lot of the games on the PC, Age of Empires excluded, Microsoft doesn't make, right? They're made by a third party. And the people who buy games are people who have high-end machines. And so they're making them for those machines. And it's kind of like, if they're not going to make it super low end, because that's not the target market who's buying games, unfortunately. People don't go out and buy a $350 laptop expecting to game on it, and so they don't buy games. It's the people who go out and buy the $2,000 laptop or $2,000 desktop PC or whatever. They expect to play games, and that's who the games are made for. Realistically, I see where you're going with the Xbox 360 stuff, but the problem with that is you're going to need some sort of emulation layer, which, again, bundling emulation layer with a lower end processor, it's not a winning combination. So really, if you're running an older PC or a newer PC, but you want to play games, you need to look at older games. That's typically going to be your best bet, right? Because they were made for high-end hardware 5 years ago, and now, things have evolved, and so they should be good. As for should this fall into Microsoft, that would be too tough of a pill for them to swallow. especially because they have the Xbox One and they want to promote the premium experience, and they do a lot for the high-end gamers, which, as I've said probably 5 times now, they're the ones spending the money in this. So next question comes from MerkBlue281, and this is a really good question on timing, and I'll get to that in a second as to why. It says the Azure remote app is getting canned, which is unfortunate. The supposed service that is available as replacements are from Citrix, MyCloud IT, and others, and they're much more expensive options, and some aren't feasible for small businesses. This is very key here, small businesses. Even simply running Azure VMs capable enough to act as RDS host is prohibitively expensive. Is there any acknowledgement by Microsoft that the cloud services they need for small customers, with the discontinuance of ARM remote services, it feels like a pushback and then running more towards running on-prem? This is frustrating because RDS via Azure is a magnificent way of eliminating single endpoints of failure and possible power and connectivity issues faced by single and local businesses. So this is actually a question I'm going to take to Microsoft and ask them and see what they say. My gut tells me that they're going to be like, hey, Azure, we do they do a small business program where they offer credits, and I think that's going to be the way they go with it. I honestly suspect that there's a bigger story here to this Azure remote app and Citrix thing. Something doesn't feel right about Microsoft be like, you know what? We're not going to use our own app anymore. We're just going to say, you know what, go spend money with a third party. Something about that doesn't feel right to me, and I'm wondering if we're going to see something come online from Microsoft that will replace that in a different way. So keep your eye out. I think that might come at Build, maybe, if not the Worldwide Partner Conference. So that's a really good question. The reason why I say this is conveniently timed, and I promise this is not a loaded question, April 26th, if you are in the Columbus, Ohio region, I mean, it's a pretty large area, I'm going to be speaking at a Citrix user group, just kind of talking about the future of Microsoft in the business, Office 365, their cloud, and all that stuff. So if you're in that area, definitely check it out. I'll tweet out some stuff here in a little bit. But yeah. Yep. We'll see. We'll see about that. So Mark Blue comes back with another one. This is actually, I remember this question, more of a suggestion, and he's actually dead on. This is actually something personal to me myself. He says, it's tax time. Please recommend that anyone using transferring documents to or from their accountants take some well-informed steps. Use Office Lens to make PDF documents. Don't forget to encrypt, and be really smart about it. Because if you're transferring tax documents, which I fall into this bucket, it's going to have your entire profile to steal your credit or your life. It's going to have your social security number. It's going to have potentially your bank accounts. It's going to have where your place of work. It's going to have everything it needs to basically steal your life. So just that's a good solid recommendation as tax time comes up here to April 15th. Avroda, he says, hey Brad, long-time listener, first time asking a question. Samsung released 3 tablets at Mobile World Congress, 2 of which were running Windows 10, with Windows 10 on ARM coming this fall. What are the odds that we see Galaxy S8 or maybe even the rumored display a phone running Windows 10 on ARM? Might try and break into the enterprise. So I fully think we will see things from Samsung. I don't think they will call it a Galaxy S8 because that would overlap too much with their brand. But Samsung has been pretty supportive of Microsoft's endeavors into the tablet space, and I fully expect them, mostly because they can make some, ignoring the Note 7 fiasco, Samsung can make some really high-end and awesome hardware, and they can also build ARM chips. I don't know if they can. I guess they probably can't build the 835 technically, but I fully expect Samsung to go deep into this ARM thing and try to take some market share quick and early because they have the capacity to do it, and not every company does. So I am optimistic we're going to see some high-end hardware, but as for specifics, we don't really quite know yet. Let's see, C1, C2, C3, C4, the longest, hardest name to pronounce sometimes, just because so many syllables. So he's talking about, a question was about the competitor reaction to allegedly lower priced Surface Book 2. Okay, so I know where he's heading with this. So if Microsoft comes out with a Surface Book 2 lower price, which I don't actually think it might not be a Surface Book 2 based on Mary Jo's information, it might just be more of a clamshell or something similar-ish. Not fully sure yet. I think that it's so if you're a Dell or an HP or whatever, the new reality is that Microsoft's a PC vendor through and through, right? They build the Surface Studio back here, they build that Surface Book, they have a Pro 4, and they have them over a wide range of price points. I don't think it really matters at this point. The impact to OEM business at this point, I think, has already been out there, because if you're spending $899 on a laptop or whatever, you already have the option of a Surface Pro 4. If you're spending higher end, we already know the story there. And the lower end, Microsoft has continued to sell the Surface Pro 3, which again falls into those lower price points. I don't think it's too big of an issue for that. And Isaac Dale asks, and I love this question. He goes, what's a feature in the creators update that normal users will actually care about? So there's and then yeah. This is a very, to be honest, the creators update is a bunch of random stuff. Like I don't think many people are going to be using this 3D Paint app. I hope that I'm wrong, but there's 3D Paint. Honestly, the really big thing and it's not even that big thing coming in the creators update for everybody, is actually the update to Windows Defender. That's a pretty big update. It makes the process of protecting your PC much more easy. But I know from a consumer's perspective, they just assume everything's protected. They're not very proactive about it, right? We know that because of weak passwords and all that stuff. So that's not really like a great update. But then there's a lot of updates to like the Mail app. Groove is getting some new stuff. Groove Music Maker, no idea what's going on there. And then there's some updates to Edge. So if you're using Edge, it's much more organized tabs and that kind of stuff. So if you're an Edge user in the Creators Update, you're going to get some good stuff. I shouldn't completely bash this thing. So Edge Creators Update does have some good stuff, some better tab management, better recall features, and better organizational, that kind of stuff. So there is some good stuff there, and it's going to render things a little bit better too. Although what we're not seeing with the Creators Update, which Microsoft has promised but yet failed to execute, is that the Edge browser is still only being updated with the large updates of Windows 10, which is... it's Microsoft just shooting themselves in the foot with all this stuff, because Chrome is updated every 6 weeks. Firefox, similar schedule. Edge is what, twice a year max? Like, guys, come on. They keep saying they're going to service it through the store. It's not happening yet. I haven't heard if it's happening with Redstone 3, but at this point, it's like, Microsoft, you're losing market share because you guys aren't updating and iterating fast enough like your competitors are. And if you're pissed that Edge doesn't have enough market share, which we know they are, because one, I've heard that very bluntly, that they're pissed off at how much little market share it has, and all the Edge ads they're putting in. You need to service it faster. It doesn't. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to run a marathon, but let me shoot myself in the foot. That's exactly what they've done. And as Neon Spark, he says, Brad, Edge is trash. Let's face it. It's another IE. So I would say it's better than IE, but the problem Edge faces, and I know a lot of the guys that work on Edge, they're very smart people. The problem Edge faces is that being as good as Chrome is not enough, right? The reason people switched to Chrome is because it was superior to the Microsoft product, right? It was better in just about every way conceivable. And so if Edge is just as good as Chrome, there's no compelling reason to switch. And if you've got all your passwords and all that stuff saved in Chrome, I know you can transfer them with LastPass and all that stuff. But the thing is, Edge not only has to be good as Chrome, it has to be a sizable leap in user experience and performance and everything else over Chrome. And let's just say if there's 10 metrics, and at least 7 of those, 6 or 7, to get people to stick with Edge, and it's not there yet. And that's the biggest issue with Edge. And so it's unfortunate. If Edge would have come out 3 years ago, like in its current state, it would have been great. It would have done very well. But the problem is it really didn't. And when it launched with Windows 10, it was neutered pretty heavily and that kind of stuff. So I wish Edge the best, and I'll probably give it a try here with the Creators Update to see if I can use it. But I mean, I use Chrome all day long. My machine isn't really constrained for resources, so it's not a huge issue. And obviously, it's a desktop, so battery life doesn't matter. And the 10. I wonder if someone could figure out how much money you would actually save on your monthly electric bill. But let's just make up a number and say I'm saving $5 by using Edge every day of the month versus Chrome. But I'd be happier using Chrome. So that's $5. It's whatever. Anyways, next week, like we're getting into that time where I'm starting to think maybe we'll start to see invites go out for an April event. And I'm hoping that we see them next week. I don't have any insider information. This is just kind of me hoping. I'm really hoping it's not April 26th, because if it is April 26th, I won't be able to go because I will be presenting at a couple different things actually that day up in the Columbus, Ohio area. So let's cross our fingers and hope it's not April 26th. But I'm hoping we see something next week or hear something next week about this. So that's about it for today, guys. We're hitting about the 30-minute mark, which is where we like to be. As always, have yourselves an excellent weekend. I think this has been another good week, although a little bit quieter, but on the backside, the back channel was a little bit louder than usual. So everybody have a great week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.